everybody, and welcome to another episode of Healthy AF. I'm so glad you're here with me. We are still in July, and it is still hot, my friends. Oh, my goodness. I hope you're having adequate hydration and time inside. I may say this the entire podcast every July. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. It is hot out there. This podcast is another question that came from one of my daughters, this time my oldest daughter. And she had a really great question. And it took me a minute to figure out what I would say to a client who asked me this. Her question is, how can I use social media as a tool to help me with my habits? Ooh, putting the health coach's feet into the fireplace on that one. And immediately, I thought about myself and how overwhelming and what's the next word? It's overwhelming for me to be on social media with all the information bombardment, much of it that conflicts with each other, different research sources, research done on different populations, like the research done on men may not fit for me. The research done on young women may not fit for me. So, really trying to discern what's for me and maybe what's not for me. And my answer to that is first, you got to do some grounding work. So I love this quote by Mahatma Gandhi. I wanted just to read it for you. It's been one of my favorites for a long time. He says, I do not want my house to be walled in on all sides and my windows to be stuffed. I want the cultures of all the lands to be blown about my house as freely as possible. But I refuse to be blown off my feet by any. And I've always loved that quote because it speaks to knowing yourself. And if you know yourself, any culture or reel or TikTok sensation or influencer or research study can come to you in the doors and the windows of your house, and you can see them, but you are not swept away by any of them. And I think that would be the very first cornerstone of my opinion as a health coach on how do I use social media as a tool, not as just a whirlwind of confusion. First of all, know yourself. And frankly, this is the part that I see people not getting. So we're going to probably come back to that because that is some clarity and some work that I find most of us living a very fast-paced life do not have. We might think we have it, but actually when it gets right down to it, our actions don't show that we have that. So we're going to come back to that. Second way I love to use social media as a tool is to find the sources that I relate the most to that are one or two steps ahead of me. You can look at reels and TikToks and, whatever that sort of you can relate to in a way like, oh, yeah, I remember when I did that. Or, yeah, like, oh, my gosh, I can, I used to do that. But that doesn't move you forward. So for me, that's almost a waste of time, except to remind me that there's a habit or a behavior that I no longer do. And sort of like, pat myself on the back, accomplishment, I've made a behavioral shift. And I do think there's value in that. But for the most part, if I'm spending my time watching information that is not new to me, and in fact, information that I've kind of moved past, that probably isn't going to help me move forward. But a person who gives information that is a couple of steps ahead of me, the information that makes me stop and go, I wonder about that. That's probably a good spot for me to be. Not to get swept off my feet, but enough to be curious about. And then there's going to be other information, just like other podcasts, right? There are some podcasts that I can grab onto and I'm like, oh, yeah, wow, I am learning and this feels good. There's some podcasts that I'm like, wow, they are talking about microbiology and without a visual, dude, this girl is not getting it. We're going to have to slow down and draw some pictures and then I will be on board. So you want to find that group, find those posts that are just a couple steps ahead of you. That's going to be the place where you can really dig in and have some tools there. The third thing I want to say, like, dude, downloadables. A lot of these places have free downloadables. Grab those free downloadables. Use them. And if you're like me, there are times that you'll do the downloadable. You'll jump through the hoops of the survey and putting it in your email and wondering whether or not this is a scam and whether or not you should really be putting in your email, or should you get one of those 10-minute emails so that you can get that right. And then I never open the download, or I forget that I've done it. That's a sure sign that you are getting overwhelmed and going too fast. That is an indicator that you didn't really want to know, because if you really wanted to know, you'd be opening up that download. So if you catch yourself in a pattern of clicking and downloading, probably you're thinking about change, but you're not really ready to change it. Nothing wrong with it. It might mean that by the time you decide actually you are ready for change, you now have 50 downloads. And if you're really organized, they're all in a folder that says like nutrition downloads or exercise downloads or stress relief downloads. And then you know exactly where to go. But if you're clicking and you're not opening or doing anything or making any action out here in the real world, you're just going to downloading and now it lives in your computer's brain so you don't have to forget it. Probably you're not ready for that change yet. And come back to those posts that are just 1 or 2 steps ahead of you. It's a little bit easier to attain. And you remember 1% growth is growth. I think the last thing I want to say is when you see influencers or information that you think like, that's crazy, no need to waste your time. It might be great information, but if you initially think like, that's nuts, there's no way I would do that, you're probably not ready for it. I remember a long time ago, a friend of mine, and this was a long time ago. Let's see. Oh gosh. It was probably my littlest wasn't even in TK yet. So she's 20. So maybe 15, 16 years ago. And a friend of mine started talking. She gave a presentation on nutrition, and she talked about how upsetting dairy can be for people and that it's not always a great choice for people. And I was like, that is some crazy talk. I need my calcium. I need my vitamin D. I'm drinking 3 glasses of milk a day. I got to have it. Well, now fast forward 15 years, I've known for the last probably 7 or 8. Actually, when we look at our dairy sources, you got to be a little careful with your dairy sources. It's not always a great addition to our nutrition, and some people's bodies really do not need that at all. But when I first heard that 15 years ago, I wasn't ready. And I'm like, that is way extreme crazy. Now, she did say something I was ready for, and that was we got to get the high fructose corn syrup out of our foods. And I remember this distinctly because at the time my children were little. And so I continued to buy them milk, but I started looking for products like breads and breakfast syrup and ketchups that didn't have any high fructose corn syrup in it. That nugget I was ready for. It didn't seem extreme, and I was able to use that to better my health. The dairy nugget I was not ready for yet. So if something seems extreme to you, it's probably better not to just put your energy on that. Leave that one alone and go explore something else, something that's a little bit closer to where you are. Let me come back to that first concept we talked about, that quote from Gandhi. Knowing what feels good for you and for your body and for your mental and emotional health is the ticket. That's where we stay grounded. That's where we know where our feet are. We know what our priorities are. And we don't get hooked and jabbed and punched into all different directions. We don't get swept away with this idea or that idea. We don't start comparing. Why can she do that? She did this, lemon juice cleanse and lost 25 pounds, but I'm doing it and I feel terrible. We don't go there. We stay solid. You got to stay solid, because when you leave your sense of self, you're also like leaving your health and your body and your mental and emotional health behind. Stay there with it. You can explore other things. You can download all the downloadables. You can get all the motivation. You can hear all the stories of the people who were 3 steps behind you and now they're 2 steps in front, and it's so motivating. Stay where you are and trust yourself. Don't be overwhelmed and blinded by all the swirl of the crazy town. One last warning that I wanted to share about social media. I know I talked about when it feels extreme and when people say this is the only way. You really have to be wary of that. It's never the only way. There are so many different ways to be. You decide for you what's the best way for you. And let me just give you some grace right up in here too. It's hard. It's hard to be clear on who we are and be grounded on what really works for us. Even in the stillness of reading the 14th download you've done. Even in the quietness, like before you get out of your bed when you're like scrolling through your TikToks with that one woman who looks exactly like you and you can really relate to her and you really like what she says. Even there, it can be hard. If you find that you have trouble connecting to your true self and your true north and letting you be your own compass, that is my specialty. Please don't hesitate. Schedule some time with me. I'm happy to give you a complimentary session just to sit down and really look at what coaching can do for you. Give yourself some grace when you forget you're your compass. I will see y'all next week after you've been hydrating well and staying inside a little bit because it's July and it is hot. Thanks for being with me. I'll see y'all soon.